Welcome to the TuneUp Challenge, where I take songwriting and I break it down into a simple practice so you can discover how fun and easy songwriting can be. So perhaps you're still learning your instrument. You're still learning chords and how to read music, and you feel a little hesitant about writing songs when you don't know how to execute it all yet on your instrument. Today, I'm going to show you how you can write songs and explore song structures using Midi Chord Blocks. This is away from your instrument and based solely on a DAW or a digital audio workstation and importing and using Midi Chord Blocks. In today's example, we are going to be diving into Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes. In fact, we're going to reconstruct the verse of this song, and I'm going to take a closer look at what she's doing with her chord progression, her meter, and how she flips a phrase towards the end of this verse, which is really interesting. All of these things you can bring into your own songwriting inside Tuneagers. So the first thing you need to do for today's challenge is go over to YouTube and listen to Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes. Specifically, let your ear tune in to the keyboard part and try to keep it there. Try to practice close listening, which is following one instrument throughout the entire song. So I have listened to the song numerous times. I have established what the chord progression is. Now, if you want to cheat, you can just go to Google and ask, what are the chord progressions for Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes? But beware, some people get it wrong. So trust your ear and do it yourself so you can exercise those muscles of listening and finding the chords yourself. The chord progression for Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes verse is major 6, major 7, minor 1. She repeats this 3 times, and then major 3 again, and major 6. It's really important that you drag these MIDI chords in on their own separate tracks for naming purposes and for easy visual reference. So follow along. Head over to the Google Drive, and I want you to grab the chords in G major or E minor. The song Ocean Eyes is in the key of E minor. So check it out. When I click here, you're going to see some options. For right now, I just want you to download the basic triad in the minor key. Now these are all the chords in E minor. I want you to download those to your desktop. Easy way to do that is go here to minor and click download. This is going to download it as a zip file to your desktop. When you double click on that, it will now look like a normal file icon. You can see it's downloaded to my downloads here. And when I double click on that, it's going to open up on my desktop and it will look like this. Inside here, I have all the minor chords. Then you need to open a new project in BandLab or your chosen DAW. It can just be a general project. So for now, I'm just going to click Voice and Audio just to get a file open. I'm going to close this. I'm going to name my project Ocean Eyes Reconstruct. And look at this right here, plus music notes. Drop a loop or an audio MIDI video file. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag the chords I need into separate tracks in BandLab. So I have a split screen here because I think it's a little easier to see. The first chord I need is my major 6. Here it is, Roman numeral big 6, C major. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag that in right here, right where it has that prompt MIDI. I'm going to drag it in as close as I can to the front of the timeline. It's going to pop it over here. I can move it later, or I can drag it. My next chord is the major 7, the D. I'm dragging it again to its own new track here. Right now, I'm not worried about the meter. I'm just dragging in the tracks. Next chord is the 1, the minor 1, which is E minor. And finally, we need the G. So you now have all the chords she uses in the verse, and our question now is, what is the meter to this song? You're going to have to listen and you're going to have to count in 16th notes. My time signature is 4/4. My BPM is 80. I'm going to bump this down to 68. It's really important that you zoom in. I want you to be able to count 16th notes, and the only way you're going to be able to see those is by zooming in. So you can see it just changed from this view where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 notes here. One more click on the zoom, boom, I have double that. I have 16. Now, 1 to 2 is 1 bar of music. It's 4 counts. I would count this. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Now we're into the second bar. So you're listening over and over again to that verse, and there's this sense of hesitancy as Billie moves from chord to chord. If we count that in 16th notes, she's only holding that C for 3 16th notes. 1 E, and then she shifts to the next chord. So I'm dragging it over. The next chord is actually the same length of time, only 3 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E, and then she has this longer chord, the E minor here. This lasts to the end of the bar. Now that sounds right. I want to note here, the reason why those first 2 chords have a little sense of anxiety or hesitancy, not hesitancy, but urgency, a sense of urgency to them, is because they're not ending on a group of 4 16th notes. We're coming in early. So normally people would think in a block shape, 1, 2, 3, 4, next chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, next chord. But she's chopped off that last 16th notes. That gives us a sense of momentum, of moving forward. Now I need to copy these 3 chords by clicking in the black space. I select all 3 of these. Don't go down here and select the bottom track, just these 3. And you have the Command C, which will copy. I'm going to move my playhead here to bar 2. I'm going to click into and select the C track. And I'm going to press Command V. And it has now just copied all 3 of those into the next bar. As you can see, I end on 3, and I need to copy this one more time. Now it's already saved, so I can just move my playhead here and Command V. The final bar of the Billie song. And she's going to keep the same meter, which means we need to adjust this G chord to be only 3 16th notes. Now take a moment and I want you to double click on this. It opens up the MIDI editor window down here. And we can see the notes which are sort of drawn in on this chart. So notice I have made my bar end here, but for whatever reason, because the original MIDI was longer, the note is like invisibly lasting longer. This is really annoying. The way to fix it is to just click and barely drag back and it disappears. Click, barely drag back. Click, barely drag back. Click, barely drag back. And now if I scroll back, they're all going to end where I adjusted the end of my chord. This is a little loophole I found. It's a little annoying, but this is going to help us. So make sure that the sounds are ending at the end of the 3rd 16th note there. So when I zoom out again, it still looks the same. But when I zoom in, the notes are no longer extending past this blue bar. So the next thing I need to do for our bar 4 of music is copy this G, just select it. Command C, move your playhead. Command V. Now I have 2 G's and I need to grab a C. So I come over here, Command C, come over here. The C track is selected because it's highlighted. Command V. And drag it over to the end. Now I have bar 4. But there's some fine tuning that we need to do with the bass notes in the first G chord and the bass notes in the second G chord. If I need to adjust the bass notes in my first G chord, double click on it. And right now, the bass note, I'm at measure 4, is the G note. I want to grab this note and I want to move it down to B. And you'll hear it drop and you can see the keys highlight. There, I'm on the B note, right there. Just drag it there. Now, go over to your second G chord, put your playhead there, double click, and we want to drag this bass note from the G down to the D, because her bass line goes B, D, and then it resolves on the C. So let's zoom out and listen now. You can hear a slight difference. And that sounds much more like the track. And they actually emphasize it with this sort of slur up. Once you've created this much of the verse, you're going to copy that entire section, duplicate it, paste it, and then that final G, G, C, you want to copy that one more time, and you'll have an entire verse for Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes. There are 3 notes that I want to make on this song. Number 1, the last bar of this song introduces only one new chord, the G chord. We've had the same progression repeating 3 times, and then finally in the 4th bar we introduce one new chord, but we land back on the first chord where we started. I call this a flip. Some people call it a turnaround. To me, it breaks the monotony of the verse, adds a little piece of new information, but yet we still feel at home. This is a lovely technique. This is a simple chord progression with a little twist. Note number 2, notice how Billie uses the same meter in every bar. You're going to have to count your 16th notes, but she's not reinventing the wheel here. She's keeping it really simple. Finally, listen to her vocal and how the vocal line descends on the melody while the chord progression rises. It ascends. So we have this contrasting motion, and it's a really nice dynamic. So it's something to keep in mind when you're working with a chord progression. Is your melody moving up with the chord progression, or is it moving counter or in contrast to that chord progression? An extra bonus for this challenge, play around with what sort of MIDI keyboard you're using. For instance, I'm going to mix mine using a Wurlitzer. It has a softer sound than the piano, and it sounds a little warbly, and to me it sounds a little watery. So play around with the effects. Also, you can experiment with recreating the rhythm track to this song underneath the chord progression, or sing the verse yourself. Today's TuneUp Songwriting Challenge is Midi Chord Block, Billie Eilish.
I've been watching you for some time. Can't stop staring at those ocean eyes.
I look forward to hearing your reconstruction of this track and seeing you inside Tuneagers.